weekdays are primed for
Beast Wars!
So tune in to the only place you'll find them, Beast Wars.
Weekday mornings at 6:30 on WB55.
So, a while back I did a video on Bionicle comics. This led me to the realization that there was this void in my life, left behind by the end of Bionicle back in 2010. I could always go back and enjoy the old books, the old toys, but until Bionicle returns one day, which, let's be honest, will probably never happen because LEGO hates us, I needed something to fill that void. So I came to the very reasonable conclusion that one of the closest things to Bionicle that managed to stay relevant over the course of time was Transformers, you know, cause sentient robots and all that. So I began my new obsession by making an attempt to get into the original G1 cartoon. And while it does have its moments, it just wasn't a show that held up entirely well.
It's the owl! The owl! Too bad! He's blown his vocal components. I guess that makes me the new leader!
It has its fan base, which is understandable, but there have been far better Transformer shows since then. I can, however, recommend the IDW Transformer comics, which from what I've read so far have been really good. A lot of fans have said that Beast Wars was the best series, and at first I wasn't so sure. Beast Wars was one of the earliest shows to be animated using CG. It was created by Canadian animation studio Mainframe, the same studio behind the first CG show, Reboot. Actually, it was probably Insectors, but we've all decided to just ignore that show ever exists. And based off of visuals I saw from various clips, I was very skeptical going in. I mean, I for one am someone who actually loves the awkwardness of early CG, but there's no way you can look at the show now and not feel that the visuals are painfully outdated. But what I did not expect was not only for Beast Wars to be a great show, but one of the best cartoons ever created for the purpose of selling toys.
So for now, let the battle be here, on this strange primitive world, and let it be called Beast Wars!
I'll try to keep spoilers to a minimum, but I'm not going to keep everything spoiler free, as it's kind of difficult to talk about Beast Wars without at least spoiling a few minor details. Beast Wars, or Beasties if you're Canadian, is a continuation of G1 Transformers, taking place in the distant future in which the descendants of the Autobots and Decepticons are now known as the Maximals and Predacons. And you may be wondering how these robots can be descendants. Were they built? Do Transformers fuck? That's not important to the story. What is important is that during a space battle, the two opposing sides get transported through space and time through a warp hole and end up stranded on what appears to be prehistoric Earth. Although it's a lot closer to the Flintstones version of prehistoric Earth, seeing as later in the show there's revealed to be Homo sapiens living among them. And not to mention the cheetahs and giant rats and all that. Sure, it makes no sense, but I did not choose to watch Beast Wars for its scientific accuracy. The rivaling factions try to figure out a way to repair their trans-warp device and get back home, all while partaking in the Beast Wars, which at least for the first season are less like wars and more like a feud between neighbors.
Whatever this fascinating device is, we Predacons claim it as our own. Yeah.
It's difficult talking about Beast Wars without first mentioning that it was a show that worked despite itself. It was always improving both in visuals and the writing. The decision to connect the show to G1 was never intended at first and was added later on once the writers took complaints from G1 fans into consideration. While Beast Wars may not be such a pretty show now, at its time of release the 3D animation was seen as a big deal and a huge selling point to the show. Despite my criticisms of the way it looks, I will say that Mainframe managed to be incredibly resourceful with their assets. What was lacking in most of the animation was heavily made up for with expressive facial animations that really helped you to understand what the characters were feeling. Both the designs and the colors of this show are another aspect I found quite appealing and a big part of the show's charm visually. The show's limited animation also had some positives, mainly because it limited the number of models that the animators could rig. Having fewer characters than G1 Transformers led to a lot of the characters being more well-rounded. If there was any reason for Beast Wars being as successful and well-received as it is, it's because of the characters. The character writing in this show is top-notch, some of the best I've seen in any children's show. Throughout the course of the series, we really get to see these characters develop as they go from often bickering in the first season to a more mutual understanding as time passes. Seriously, choosing a favorite character from this show is nearly impossible. I love pretty much all of the Maximals, except maybe Silverbolt, also known as the biggest himbo in all of Transformers.
Black Arachnia, oh dark poison of my heart, abide with me yet a while.
I actually like him now, but it took me a while to warm up to his dumbassery. And then there's Airazor, who just feels incredibly underdeveloped when compared to the others. But when it comes to the Predacons, there's not a single one I don't like. They're all the best. Another aspect to the Predacons that I really enjoyed was how their characters could either be completely loyal or entirely deceptive to this incarnation of Megatron. This is obviously a trope inspired by Starscream's relationship to Megatron in the G1 cartoon, but by having more than one character always ready to betray him at any moment, made for an interesting team dynamic. It's because of this that the character of Tarantulas became one of my favorites in the second season. Also, he's got that great laugh. And it's impossible to talk about Beast Wars without giving a shout out to the fan favorite character, Dinobot. Dinobot was a Predacon who turned against Megatron and joined the Maximals during the pilot episodes. It was a welcome addition to Transformers, proving that Decepticons, or in this case Predacons, weren't inherently evil and could change sides if they so choose. The show also took its time with this. Dinobot wasn't immediately accepted into the Maximals. He had to prove himself, and by the time he did, it felt earned.
Though Megatron is close to achieving a great victory, I foolishly believed I wanted to be part of it.
And now?
I wish to fight with you until we win the Beast Wars.
It's not just the writing that brought these characters to life, but the perfect casting as well. Every voice actor gave a performance that was both memorable and unique. There's a certain way that many of these characters talk in this show, with little quirks and catchphrases that make them hard to forget. And it's hard to pick just one catchphrase that I love, but the one I'll probably end up using from now until the end of time is Optimus Primal's always classic,
Well, that's just prime. Well, that's just prime! I'd say that's prime.
well, that and Megatron's famous yes.
Yes, 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 yes.
And I know I'm supposed to hate the flamboyant, queer-coded villains, but gay Megatron is best Megatron.
Oh, I like you, pussycat. Yes.
But while every voice actor does an excellent job, Scott McNeil is really the standout here, voicing Rat Trap, Waspinator, Dinobot, and Silverbot. The man is the very definition of range. The animation is another aspect of the show that improved with time. I could see the first 2 episodes that act as the pilot turning a lot of the viewers off, as the animation is truly horrendous at times.
The name's Cheater. What's shaking, cats?
But the animation does quickly show improvement after those episodes, and if you compared the pilot to the 3rd season, the difference is night and day. Although Una and Chak never looked good, these insults to God will forever haunt my nightmares. There were also some aspects of the show that were used early on that eventually were forgotten simply because either animation improved or the writers felt it to be unnecessary. There was this whole thing at first about the characters having to stay in their beast modes to conserve energon or something, but it's quickly forgotten, which I'd say was for the better. In the first season, the characters also used the words maximize and terrorize to transform
Rat Trap, maximize! Pterosaur, terrorize!
This was of course just a way to procrastinate to spare the animators some animation time. I won't hold it against them though, as a lot of shows do that. You ever watch Digimon? Cause that shit never ends. Fortunately, by season 2, it had pretty much disappeared from the show. I also really like the use of sound effects in this show. I mean, the constant robotic clinking is something that sounds like it would get old fast, but it never does. Beast Wars is also a show that is surprisingly funny. It has that perfect balance of knowing when to take itself seriously, but still leaving plenty of time for fun moments. The show has a more episodic feel to it, which I think successfully helps it to keep that balance. There are, however, a few awkward moments of comedy where Mainframe would try to do cartoony slapstick that didn't quite transfer well to 3D. It's another flaw I'm willing to forgive, but it still felt weird. And then there's those episodes that maybe take the jokes too far. No one's ever gonna forget the time that Megatron was defeated by a fart.
This is certainly the most humiliating defeat of my entire career. Yes.
Hey, it's a Canadian cartoon. What are you gonna do? Another cool aspect of the show was that some of the characters would receive upgrades to their designs as the show progressed. Yes, I am aware this is just done to sell toys, but as someone who shamelessly loves toys as much as I love watching cartoons, that's one of the elements that I really loved about the show.
New electronic Optimal Optimus, the biggest transmetal ever. Blazing beast mode to tank assault to air attack to plasma cannon robot. 4 modes of disguise, 1 massive size. Beast Wars.
Mainly because it reminded me of Bionicle and the way they were constantly changing to fit with the story's narrative. Does that make me biased? Yes, it does. This is a show that succeeds at making me want to buy the toys. From the designs to the likable characters, it just does everything right. As of right now, I own 0 Beast Wars toys, and that's something that desperately needs to change. Finally, I want to talk about the elephant in the room, and that is Beast Wars' relentless horniness. Like, goddamn, every guy in this show wants to sleep with every woman. It's kind of a shame, as when the show starts off, every character gives off incredibly gay vibes until like the later half of season 2, when you start to realize that everyone is incredibly straight. Well, except for maybe Cheetor. I've seen the way that twink looks at Optimus Primal.
Guys, check out Big Bot.
I'm gonna regret this part of the video, won't I? In the end, Beast Wars is probably, maybe, the best Transformers cartoon. I'm fairly new to the franchise, so I guess I can't really make that distinction, but it did manage to invest me in Transformers way more than any other adaptation. It would be pretty much impossible to make this show today. I'm not saying that you couldn't make another good Beast Wars show, but with modern animation and writing, it just would not be the same. My next Transformers show to watch is Beast Machines, a show that a lot of Transformer fans seem to dislike, but seeing as it continues the Beast Wars story, I'm looking forward to it. As of making this video, I have only watched the first episode so far, and other than the creepy H.R. Geiger-esque designs, it seems pretty promising. I'll just have to wait and see how it plays out from here. Thank you to everyone who watched this video. I highly recommend you check out Beast Wars if you have yet to. It's streaming free on Tubi, so you can't really go wrong. I'll see you in another Decacycle. Goodbye.